There is a kind of silence that is not empty. It has weight. It takes up space in a room. It's the silence of the phone in your hand, dark and still, but feeling heavier than it did this morning. It's the silence in your car when a certain song plays, and the world outside the window fades into a blur. It is his silence, and it has become louder than any words he ever spoke. It's a strange paradox. When he was present, sending messages, calling, filling the space with his voice and his plans, your world felt normal. The volume was set to a comfortable level. But now, in his absence, a different sound has taken over. A high-frequency hum of questions, a deep bass note of anxiety. His distance is not an absence of signal, it is a signal in itself, and your entire nervous system is trying to decode it. You tell yourself the logical stories. He's busy, he's stressed with work, he's not a big communicator, he needs space. Your friends offer the same reasonable explanations, patting your hand, telling you not to overthink it. But your body knows better. Your body doesn't listen to logic, it listens to energy. And the energy of his withdrawal is shouting. It shouts in the moments just before you fall asleep, when your mind replays the last conversation, searching for a clue you might have missed. It shouts when you see a couple laughing on the street, and a pang of something sharp and cold hits your chest. You are not just missing him, you are interpreting him. His silence has become a vast, blank screen, and you are projecting 1,000 different movies onto it. In one, he is tormented, missing you desperately, but too proud or afraid to reach out. In another, he has moved on without a second thought, and you are just a ghost in his memory. You switch between these films, and each one leaves you feeling more exhausted, more hollowed out. This is the central agony, the not knowing. But it's more than that. It's the feeling that the silence itself is an active force, a thing he is doing to you. And the more you try to ignore it, the louder it gets. You decide not to check your phone, and the urge becomes a physical craving. You decide to go out and have fun, and his absence comes with you, an invisible guest at the table. Why? Why does his distance have this much power? Why does it feel less like an ending and more like a question that demands an answer? The surface-level answer is that you care for him, and you want to know if he cares for you. But this is only the beginning of the story. The intensity of your reaction, the way his silence can hijack your entire emotional state, points to something much deeper. It's not just about him, it's about what his behavior has awakened in you. This is not a simple case of unrequited affection. This is the activation of a powerful, unconscious psychological structure. From a Jungian perspective, you are in the grip of a complex. A complex, in the world of Carl Jung, is not a flaw or a weakness. It is a core pattern in the psyche, a cluster of memories, emotions, and beliefs that have been bound together by a powerful energetic charge. Think of it like a magnet hidden beneath the surface of your conscious mind. You may not see the magnet itself, but you see its effects. It pulls certain experiences, certain people, certain dynamics toward you, again and again. It has its own gravity. And when a situation in the present moment resonates with the original charge of that complex, it activates. It comes alive. His distance, his emotional unavailability, his silence, these are not just his actions. They are the key that has fit perfectly into the lock of an old, familiar door inside you. A door you may not have even known was there. And behind that door is a room filled with the energy of waiting. The silence feels so loud because it is echoing in a chamber that was built long ago. This is the uncomfortable truth. The power his silence has over you is not a measure of how much he loves you or how much he is thinking about you. It is a measure of the power of your own unconscious attachment complex. He is not the author of this feeling. He is merely the actor who has walked onto the stage and started playing a role you unconsciously wrote for him. To understand this is to begin the process of taking your power back. It's to shift the question from the maddening, unanswerable, "What is he thinking?" to the profound, life-altering question, "What is this situation trying to show me about myself?" Let's imagine this complex as a room at the end of a long hallway in your psyche. For most of your life, the door to this room has been closed. You've built a life. You've had other relationships. You've become a capable, intelligent woman. You decorated the hallway, hung pictures on the walls, and mostly forgot about that room. But the door was never locked. It was just closed. Then you met him. And something about him, his charm, his intensity, His moments of deep connection followed by periods of withdrawal resonated with the forgotten energy behind that door. He didn't create the room, but he knew, on an unconscious level, where the key was. Now, he has distanced himself, and in your mind, he is standing just on the other side of that door. The door is slightly ajar. You can't see him clearly. You might hear a floorboard creak, or think you see a shadow move. The ambiguity is excruciating. You are standing in the hallway, your entire being focused on that sliver of darkness, that gap in the frame. Your life, your work, your friends, they are all down the hallway, behind you. But you can't turn around. You are fixated on the door. This is the grip of the attachment complex. It narrows your focus. It convinces you that the only thing that matters in the entire world is what is happening inside that room. The loudness of his silence is the sound of your own soul's energy pouring into that hallway, amplifying every tiny creak, every imagined whisper from behind the door. Where did this room come from? For many women, this particular complex has its roots in the relationship with the first masculine figure in her life, typically the father. This isn't about blame, it's about psychological inheritance. If a father was physically present but emotionally distant, if he was loving but inconsistent, if his approval was something to be earned but never fully secured, a pattern is set. The young girl learns a fundamental, unconscious equation. Love from the masculine is something that is powerful but not quite present. It is something you must wait for. It is something that withdraws. Her psyche adapts. It creates a space, that room, designed to hold the energy of this longing. It becomes a part of her inner architecture, the animus, her own inner masculine principle, which is meant to develop into her source of inner authority, logic, and action, instead becomes shaped by this early experience. Her animus becomes an expert in waiting, in interpreting silence, in hoping for a presence that is just out of reach. So, when she grows up and meets a man who embodies this same dynamic, present, then absent, intense, then distant, her unconscious doesn't see a red flag. It feels a profound, magnetic sense of recognition. It feels like coming home. This feeling is often mistaken for destiny, for a soul connection, for deep, earth-shattering love. And it is deep. It is a connection to the deepest part of her own unresolved story. She is not falling in love only with him. She is falling back into the emotional landscape of that room in the hallway. His distance feels so significant because it perfectly validates the old, unconscious belief. This is what love feels like. A powerful presence that I cannot quite hold on to. A door that is not quite closed, but not quite open either. The pain is familiar, and because it is familiar, the psyche mistakes it for being right. This is why logical advice fails. Your friends say, if he wanted to, he would. Just block him and move on. But they don't understand. You are not just dealing with a man who isn't texting back. You are wrestling with a ghost from your own psychological past. To just move on feels like abandoning a sacred post. It feels like giving up on the one thing that feels most real, most important. The complex has hijacked your sense of priority. The first step toward freedom is not to try and force the door shut. That often creates more resistance. The first step is to simply become aware of the hallway. To turn your head, just for a moment, and see the rest of your life waiting for you. To acknowledge, I am standing here again. I have been here before. This is not the first time you have felt this specific ache of waiting. Think back. It may have been a different person, a different situation, a friendship where you were always the one to initiate contact, a job where you were waiting for recognition that never came, a moment in your childhood, waiting by a window. The details change, but the feeling is the same, a feeling of being on the outside, looking in, waiting for a sign, for an invitation to enter. When you recognize the pattern, the story begins to change. It stops being a unique tragedy about you and this one specific man. It becomes a recurring theme in your life, a psychological knot that you have been invited, once again, to untangle. He is not the cause of the knot. He is merely the one who has pulled it tight enough for you to finally notice it. The ego hates this realization. The ego wants to believe this is a special case. But this time it's different, it insists. The connection was real. He's not like the others. The ego wants to keep the focus on him because that is easier than turning inward and facing the source of the complex. Analyzing his motives, his fears, his past, it feels productive, but it is a sophisticated form of procrastination. It is you, standing in the hallway, polishing the doorknob on his side of the door, instead of turning around and walking back toward your own living room. So what happens when you stop focusing on the door? What happens when you withdraw your energy from it? At first, it feels terrifying. The silence might even seem to get louder, like a final, desperate attempt by the complex to keep your attention. This is the moment of greatest temptation, when you are most likely to send that message, to make that call, to do something, anything, to get a response and relieve the tension. This is the critical point. Here, you must understand the difference between a tactic and a true psychological shift. Many will advise no contact as a strategy to make him miss you. The idea is that your silence will make him anxious, and he will come running back to close the loop. This can sometimes work on a surface level, but it is a manipulation of the dynamic, not a transformation of it. You are still standing in the hallway, just pretending to look at your phone. Your energy is still fixated on the door, waiting for it to open. A true shift is different. It is not about making him do anything. It is about you deciding that you are no longer available to stand in hallways. It is a quiet, internal decision. It is the moment you stop waiting for an invitation and realize you are the owner of the entire house. You turn your attention away from the door, not to punish him, but to nourish yourself. You start to pour all that psychic energy, all the analyzing, the worrying, the hoping, back into your own life. You take that energy and you invest it in your work, your friendships, your body, your creativity. You start redecorating the other rooms in your house, rooms you had forgotten about. You might start a project you'd put on hold. You might reconnect with a friend you'd neglected because you were so consumed by this one relationship. You might simply sit in your own living room with a cup of tea and feel the simple, solid reality of your own presence. At first, it feels strange, almost disloyal to the intensity of the connection you felt. The complex will whisper, "What if he reaches out while you're not paying attention? You'll miss it." You have to be willing to miss it. You have to be willing to trust that your own life is more important than the possibility of his return. This is the process of withdrawing your projection. Jung spoke of projection as the unconscious act of seeing our own inner contents in another person. You have projected the image of the longed-for, redeeming masculine onto him. His silence became the perfect canvas for this projection because it is blank. You could paint any story you wanted onto it, a story of his deep, wounded love for you, or a story of his cold rejection. Both stories were yours. When you withdraw the projection, the screen goes blank again. But this time, it is not a terrifying void. It is just silence. It no longer shouts. It is just an absence of sound. The man behind the door ceases to be a mythical figure holding the key to your happiness. He becomes just a man who is distant, a man who is silent. The emotional charge dissipates. You can see him for what he is, not for what your complex needed him to be. This is a profound turning point. You stop seeing him as the source of your pain or your potential salvation. You see that the source of the pain, and therefore the source of the healing, is within you. It is the unresolved energy of your own attachment complex. And here, another layer reveals itself. What about your shadow? The shadow, in Jungian terms, is the part of ourselves that we have repressed or disowned. For the woman who is always waiting, always giving, always understanding, the shadow often contains the opposite qualities. It contains her anger, her boundaries, her right to say no, her ability to put herself first. Your persona, the mask you show to the world, might be that of the patient, compassionate, endlessly understanding woman. You pride yourself on being able to handle his distance, on not being needy. But beneath this persona, the shadow is seething. It is the part of you that is tired of waiting in the hallway. It is the part of you that wants to slam the door shut and shout, "Enough." Engaging with this dynamic is often a way to avoid meeting this shadow. As long as you are focused on him and his mysterious motives, you don't have to feel your own legitimate anger at being left in limbo. You don't have to set a boundary that might lead to the ultimate loss of the connection. You can remain the good, understanding woman. The true healing comes when you allow yourself to touch that shadow anger, not to act it out on him, but to acknowledge its existence within you, to let it speak to you. That anger is pure life force. It is the voice of your own self-preservation. It is the part of your psyche that loves you enough to be furious that you are standing in a cold hallway, waiting for crumbs of attention. When you integrate this shadow energy, you don't become a bitter or angry person. You become whole. Your patience is now balanced with a clear boundary. Your compassion for him is now balanced with compassion for yourself. You are no longer just the understanding woman. You are a woman who understands her own worth. And from this place of wholeness, the dynamic with him is transformed, regardless of what he does. Let's say you have done this work. You have recognized the complex. You have turned your attention away from the door and back to your own life. You have started to integrate your shadow. You feel a new sense of centeredness, of peace. The silence is no longer loud. It's just quiet. What happens if he then reaches out? The message finally arrives. Hey, been thinking about you. The woman who is still in the grip of the complex feels a jolt of ecstatic relief. The drug has arrived. The validation is here. She immediately drops everything. Her energy floods back toward him, and the cycle begins anew. But the woman who has done the inner work feels something different. She sees the message, and there is no jolt. There might be a flicker of warmth or curiosity, but the frantic, desperate energy is gone. She does not feel that her life has just been saved. She feels calm. She looks at the message, and she sees it for what it is, a simple communication from another person. It does not hold the weight of her entire self-worth. She can choose how and when to respond, from a place of sovereignty, not from a place of desperate need. If she chooses to engage, she does so from a new foundation. She is no longer standing in the hallway. She is in her own living room. He is the one at the door now, and he will sense this shift immediately. He will sense that he is no longer meeting the woman who waits, but a woman who lives. He is meeting a woman whose center of gravity is firmly within herself. This is terrifying for a man who is unconsciously drawn to the power dynamic of being the one who is waited for. He may retreat again, permanently this time, because the game is over. The dynamic that fed his ego and soothed his own fear of intimacy is no longer available. Or he may be intrigued. He may be challenged. He may see, for the first time, not a projection of his own needs or her needs, but a real, whole woman. And this may invite him to show up in a real, whole way. But here is the most important part. By the time you reach this point, which of these outcomes occurs will no longer feel like a matter of life and death. The question is no longer whether he returns. The question has been answered. You have returned to yourself. His distance became a gift. It was the symptom that forced you to look for the underlying disease. The loudness of his silence was a sacred alarm bell, waking you up from the trance of an old, inherited pattern. It forced you to find the parts of yourself you had abandoned in that hallway. Your anger, your boundaries, your own vibrant life force. If this journey resonates with you, if you have felt the weight of that silence, take a moment. Put a hand on your heart and feel your own presence. That is real. That is here. The rest is a story. You don't have to keep reading a chapter that hurts you. The work is to slowly, patiently, lovingly walk yourself back from that half-open door. To turn around and face the light and life in the rest of your home. To learn to trust the solid ground of your own being more than you trust the creak of a floorboard from a room that is not yours. This is not about forgetting him or pretending it didn't matter. It is about honoring the connection by understanding the profound lesson it came to teach you. It came to show you where you were abandoning yourself. It came to show you the way back home. And home is not a person. It is not a relationship. Home is the quiet, centered, unshakable peace you discover when you finally stop waiting for someone else to let you in, and you realize you were holding the key all along. My peace is no longer waiting behind someone else's door. It is here, with me. This realization is not a single, lightning bolt moment. It is a dawn. It breaks slowly, and at first, the changes are so subtle you might not even notice them. They happen not in your mind, which is still capable of running the old stories, but in your body. The body, which held the tension of his silence so faithfully, is the first to register the peace. This is the body memory layer of the healing process. Your nervous system has been trained, perhaps since childhood, to exist in a state of hypervigilance around attachment. It learned to scan for signs of withdrawal, to interpret shifts in tone, to hold its breath while waiting for a response. His silence was not just a psychological trigger, it was a somatic one. It activated a cascade of cortisol and adrenaline, creating that familiar, agonizing hum of anxiety. The knot in your stomach, the tightness in your throat, the shallow breathing. These were not just feelings, they were physiological states, your body physically bracing for the expected pain of abandonment. As you withdraw your energy from the door in the hallway, your body begins to exhale, perhaps for the first time in months. One day, you will be driving, and you will notice your hands are relaxed on the steering wheel. You'll be lying in bed and realize the space in your chest, where that cold dread used to live, feels open. It feels quiet. The phone in your hand, which once felt like a small, dense black hole of potential rejection, now just feels like a phone again. Its weight is neutral. These are the first concrete signs that the complex is losing its power. You are not forcing this calm. It is arriving on its own. It is the natural state of your nervous system when it is no longer locked in a trauma response. You begin to notice gaps in the static. An hour will go by, then 2, then an entire afternoon, where you simply did not think about him. You were not trying not to think about him. You were just living. You were absorbed in your work, laughing with a friend, lost in a book. And in these moments, your life force, which had been hemorrhaging into the void of his silence, is flowing back into you. Your inner monologue begins to shift. The frantic question, "What is he thinking? What did I do wrong?" is slowly replaced by a much quieter, more grounded question. "What do I need right now?" The focus of your care turns inward. Do you need a walk in nature? Do you need to listen to music? Do you need to call a friend and talk about something completely unrelated? You start to parent yourself through the lingering echoes of the old anxiety, offering the reassurance you once desperately sought from him. And then, your dreams may change. In the grip of the complex, dreams are often filled with anxiety. You are chasing him. You are dialing a number that won't connect. You are lost, and trying to find a house you can't remember. These are the psyche's attempts to process the feeling of being locked out. As you heal, the dreamscape shifts. You might dream of finding a hidden room in your own house, filled with treasures. You might dream of flying or swimming in clear water. These are symbols of integration, of reclaiming lost parts of yourself. Your unconscious is confirming your progress, showing you that you are no longer trapped in the hallway, but exploring the vast, rich territory of your own inner world. This newfound peace is delicate at first. It will be tested. The universe has a way of checking in to see if the lesson has truly been integrated. The script calls for a late practical test, and it often arrives when you least expect it. We spoke of him sending a message, but let's imagine a different scenario. You were at a grocery store on a Tuesday evening, thinking about what to make for dinner. You turn a corner, and there he is, standing in the aisle, looking at his phone. Time seems to warp. In that split second, your body remembers everything. The old neural pathways fire up, a jolt of adrenaline, a lurch in your stomach. The hallway door flies open in your mind. The woman still caught in the complex freezes. Her entire world shrinks to this one aisle. Her heart pounds. Should she approach him? Should she hide? What does he look like? Does he look sad? Does he look happy? Her internal monologue explodes into 1,000 frantic questions. Her evening, her peace, is instantly shattered. But the woman who has been doing the work experiences that same initial jolt. The body's memory is deep. But then, something remarkable happens. After the initial shock wave, a profound calm follows. She feels her feet on the floor. She takes a breath. She recognizes the jolt for what it is, an echo, a ghost of a past pattern. It is not the present reality. She sees him not as the arbiter of her happiness, but as a person in a grocery store. The myth has dissolved. He is just a man. She does not need to hide. She also does not need to perform. She might offer a small, polite nod if their eyes meet, or she might simply turn her cart and walk down another aisle, not out of fear, but because she is busy thinking about her dinner. Her center of gravity has not been pulled out of her. She remains in her own body, in her own life. She goes home, and the encounter is not a source of obsessive analysis for the next 3 days. It is an anecdote, a fleeting moment that has no power to derail her peace. That is freedom. Another, more subtle test is seeing the pattern play out in others. A friend might call you, distraught over a man who is doing the exact same thing. the intense connection followed by the deafening silence. The old you would have dived headfirst into the drama with her. You would have spent hours analyzing his texts, dissecting his motives, feeding her obsession because it validated your own. You would have been two women, standing together in the same cold hallway. The healed you listens with deep compassion. You recognize her pain intimately. But you do not enter the hallway with her. You stay firmly planted in your own living room, and you speak to her from there. You can validate her feelings without validating the illusion. You might say, "I hear how painful that is. It sounds agonizing. What can you do for yourself right now to feel even a little bit better?" You gently guide her attention back to herself, back to her own house. You become a lighthouse for her, not another ship lost in the same fog. When you can witness the dynamic without being drawn into it, you know the work has taken root. This is the true reparenting of the self, and it completes a crucial psychological circuit. The energy you once projected onto him as the savior or the withholding father is fully reclaimed. This reclaimed energy doesn't just disappear. It coalesces and strengthens your own inner masculine, your animus. The animus, which was once a ghost haunting that hallway, waiting for a sign, now comes inside. It becomes your inner pillar of strength. It is the part of you that can think logically under emotional pressure. It is the part of you that takes decisive action in your own best interest. It is the voice that says, "I am worthy of consistency and clarity," and believes it. It becomes your inner partner, a source of unwavering support. You no longer need a man to provide that structure, because you have cultivated it within yourself. And so, you walk out of the house entirely. You leave the hallway, the closed doors, the waiting games behind. You step out into the garden of your own life. Some parts of it may have been neglected while you were standing watch, and they need tending. But the sun is out. The air is fresh. There is so much space to grow. This journey, sparked by the pain of his silence, was never really about him. It was a sacred, and often brutal, invitation to come home to yourself. It was the call to excavate your own foundations, to meet your own shadows, and to rebuild your house on the bedrock of self-love, not on the shifting sands of external validation. The silence that once felt like a punishment has become a space for your own soul to finally speak, and you are finally quiet enough to hear it. It doesn't shout, it whispers, and it says, simply, "Welcome home." You have arrived, not to a destination, but to a new way of being, present, whole, and magnificently, peacefully free.